Japan stands out for several peculiarities, and one particular statistic sets it apart on the world stage. Despite being one of the countries with high population density, it has an almost non-existent rate of people living on the streets. In comparison, the United States faces a growing homeless problem, with this number increasing year after year. However, Japan seems to have found a solution to this social puzzle that, at first glance, seemed intractable. Nevertheless, a closer look at the situation reveals a distinct reality. What appears to be a remarkable success conceals a darker narrative about life in Japanese society and what truly goes on beyond the optimistic news. How did Japan achieve an almost zero rate of homeless residents? And why might this not be as promising as it seems? There is a lesser-known side to how Japan has addressed the issue of homelessness. According to official data, out of a population of over 125 million, around 3,000 people live on the streets. This represents only 0.003% of its population, a figure well below that of nations like Switzerland and very different from the United States. Several factors influence this scenario. Being homeless in Japan is not easy, primarily due to the strong cultural stigma associated with this condition. The founder of an NGO that assists homeless Japanese individuals mentions the intense societal repudiation of this reality. Upon closer examination, it becomes apparent that the situation is more intricate than it appears. Japan may have simply concealed a deep challenge by changing how it is perceived by the general public. The harsh truth hidden behind this statistical highlight suggests that despite its impressive numerical record, there is still much work to be done in addressing the root causes of poverty and social isolation. In Japan, empathy for people in socially vulnerable situations, especially the homeless, is not a widely shared emotion. Often these individuals are seen as responsible for their own misery, making them targets of disdain and limited assistance. The issue worsens when we consider that the majority of homeless individuals are men, to whom traditional Japanese culture demands self-sufficiency. Failing in this regard is not only interpreted as a shameful personal failure in the eyes of society, but also in the eyes of the individuals affected themselves. This mindset has motivated local authorities to establish regulations that make daily life on the streets even more challenging compared to other parts of the world. One example is the strict prohibition of begging. Furthermore, people living on the streets are often displaced from public areas in an attempt to keep them out of the public eye. In large cities like Tokyo, what is known as hostile architecture for the homeless has been adopted, where urban elements are deliberately designed to discourage people from staying or resting in public areas. Benches with dividers, inclined surfaces, and parks that close their gates at night are just some of the strategies used to keep the homeless at a distance. Such practices make life on the streets not only a physical challenge, but also a socially aversive environment, contributing to the low presence of homeless individuals because most strive to avoid such a condition. Additionally, there are aspects of Japanese policies that, while not explicitly targeting the issue of homelessness, end up influencing the situation. Japan maintains strict laws against the use of illicit drugs, except for alcohol, and imposes severe penalties for offenders. As a result, less than 2% of the population is involved with illicit drugs, a stark contrast to other places where substance abuse can be a contributing factor to homelessness. The combination of efforts and policies in Japan seems to mask the scale of the homelessness crisis. However, this highlights aspects of culture and government actions that need to be deeply reconsidered to address the issue in a more compassionate and lasting manner. The challenge of drugs in Japan is less pronounced when compared to other countries, largely due to strict local laws. Additionally, Japan has an excellent healthcare system. This is crucial because studies indicate that about 30 to 50% of homeless individuals in the United States suffer from mental disorders. In Japan, people with more severe conditions are typically directed to specialized institutions. In contrast, in the United States, many of these individuals may end up on the streets. Japan stands out in the fight against homelessness by adopting a proactive housing strategy. The country has been prolific in constructing residences, surpassing many developed democracies. Unlike various Western nations where bureaucratic restrictions limit home construction, Japan follows a more flexible path, encouraging building and thus reducing related costs. This results in more affordable housing for all. At first glance, these actions position Japan as a reference in addressing the issue of homelessness, a remarkable achievement given the complexity of this social problem. However, there is a less visible side to this story. There is still a significant portion of people without a home in Japan who are often pushed out of the public view and, consequently, out of official metrics. How can this be explained? Perhaps the key lies in the methodology of data collection and presentation, as well as the ability to make the homeless invisible to the public eye. Furthermore, there are cultural and social nuances that require a closer examination. Japan's apparent victory over homelessness may be more intricate than it appears at first glance, underscoring the importance of a more detailed view and deeper study of homelessness approaches, both in the Japanese context and internationally. In the 1990s, Japan faced a devastating economic setback, marked by the decline of stock and property markets. The stability of well-paying employment became a distant dream for many. With the economy in turmoil, a large number of individuals were forced to accept temporary and low-paying jobs. This group of precariously employed workers became famously known as Japan's forgotten generation, people on the fringes of society with no clear purpose and little hope on the horizon. With rents unaffordable for many, even in a nation with seemingly more viable housing options, an unlikely alternative emerged: cybercafes. Abundant in Japan and operating 24 hours, these places charge users based on the time spent. Faced with economic adversity, these environments saw an increase in the number of Japanese seeking a temporary place to spend the night. While they don't offer conventional beds, private compartments with computers provided a space for rest. Recognizing the new demand, many cybercafes expanded their services, offering food, clothing, and even showers. This unique scenario gave rise to a new form of accommodation, solidifying the Japanese concept of mercantile refuge. However, this alternative is not free. Sleeping in these places comes with a cost that ranges between $17 and $28 per night, an amount that is not necessarily affordable. Many of those who frequent these net cafes have temporary jobs that, while not allowing for the payment of conventional rent, enable a few hours in these facilities. Even though they are not actually on the streets, these digital nomads of internet cafes experience a contemporary version of homelessness, without a permanent residence and facing various social challenges as a result. Despite this hidden reality, it is rare to see them sleeping in public places. They strive daily to maintain a clean and orderly appearance, avoiding the label of homeless in the Japanese context. Due to this behavior, official statistics on homelessness in Japan tend to be underestimated. Independent organizations argue that the actual situation is at least 3 times more severe than official records indicate. And this doesn't even account for these digital-era homeless who spend much of the night in connected places. Incorporating this segment of the population into the statistics would lead to a significant change. In 2020, it is believed that about 15,000 people visited cybercafes in Tokyo every day, a figure that is 5 times higher than the officially registered homeless population in the country. On one hand, this digital movement can be seen in a positive light as it provides shelter and respect to those without housing. On the other hand, it highlights the significant social challenges that Japan seeks to conceal. In Japan, a significant portion of the population, exceeding 22 million people, is in a condition of temporary or part-time employment, not by choice, but due to the scarcity of opportunities. While they are not homeless, many of these individuals receive very low wages, making the search for permanent housing a Herculean task. When compared to the United States, Japan officially reports a lower percentage of homeless individuals. However, the contingent of those in vulnerable housing and living situations is alarmingly high. Many find refuge in cyber cafes and cramped accommodations, remaining trapped in a cycle of temporary jobs and housing. Unfortunately, this reality is often overlooked by the majority of Japanese society. Despite official figures pointing to an almost insignificant number of homeless individuals, they hide the country's growing economic strain. The trend is that this crisis will worsen with the increase in hidden homelessness. If this topic has caught your attention, I would like to hear your opinion in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and like to support the spread of this content. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you next time.